And welcome back to the 20 strongest Shinigami video, Captain Class Shinigami video series. We're on number 15. In my opinion, was Kaname Tosen. As always, you'll notice that I am not in in the frame. I'm not actually in the actual video. I'm going to actually enlarge this video real quick just so you don't see that little weird. There we are. There we are. Just so you don't see that weird line on the side here. It just makes more sense for me not to be actually in the video. That way I can have more room. But if you hear purring, I'm actually not at my place. I'm at my friend's place, house sitting, cat sitting. You can hear her cat Pumpkin in my lap right now. If you hear some light purring. Yes, actually, I was sorry. I was being quiet for a second to see if the mic picked that up. Yeah, the mic actually does pick up your purring, Pumpkin. He is a love machine. That is what he is. He is so starved for love and affection right now. So luckily I don't need both hands to do this. I can use my mouse appropriately. Anyway, Kaname Tosen was the captain rankings got weird if you want to say past, present, current, former. Kaname was technically the former 9th captain, but he took over the place of the former 9th captain, who then became the current 9th captain again. Point being, he was the captain of the 9th division of the 13 Court Guard squad. And I mean, even of the original generation, the original captains we started the series with, he wasn't weak. I mean, clearly he ranked a bit low. He doesn't rank as high as a lot of the other ones, but he wasn't weak by any stretch of the means. He was a captain. He knew flash stuff. He was actually proficient in Kido from what we saw. He used the, I think, level 54 Hado. I think it's called Hyen, which is what he used to destroy Grimjow's arm. So he probably was, because his Zanpakuto is a Kido type, so it makes sense he probably knew Kido. We just never really see him employ it very often. But yeah, obviously he knew Kido to some degree. But his primary method of fighting was his Zanpakuto. And he was a pretty skilled swordsman as far as we know. Like, he was able to take on both Sajin and Shuhei, although that was when he got his visor enhancement, where he became a visor and even got a resurrection. So take that for what it's worth. Even against Kenpachi, he was even able to at least momentarily surprise Kenpachi with his Zanpakuto abilities. But ultimately, it's Kenpachi, so that didn't go over very well. So, I mean, his Zanpakuto is Suzumushi, which has 2 activated abilities, known as Suzumushi Nishiki. I might be getting that one first name wrong. And then Suzumushi Benehiko. It seems to revolve around the concept of sound and vibration. The first one seems to do like a super high-pitched sound, which overloads the opponent's senses and knocks them out. It's unknown whether or not this would actually work on a fresh, ready to go opponent. Like, say, if he had tried to use it against Kenpachi, would it have worked? My belief, going by the idea of what Aizen says, Shinigami battles are a battle of Ryatsu, is no. That technique only worked on. Sorry, Pumpkin's going a little nuts at the moment. That technique only worked on Uryu because he was pretty much losing his spiritual power and he was already weakened from the fight. Against a fresh opponent, ready to go into the fight, who has comparable spiritual pressure or greater than you, that technique probably at minimum doesn't do anywhere near the same effect as it did against Uryu. Benehiko seems to vibrate the sword to the point where it creates theoretical after images, like 100 blades, and the blades become solid and strike down the opponent. He also used this against Kenpachi, but again, it's Kenpachi, so it did pretty much. I mean, he was pierced by all these blades, but it's like it didn't slow him down at all. But still, pretty powerful attack, all things considered. His Bankai, though, is where things get really fun. This was the second Bankai, if I'm not mistaken, we saw in the actual series. Suzumushi, Tashimi. I always forget the second name. It's not because the last part is Enma Kurogi. Okay, so hold on. It's Suzumushi, Tosen, Bankai. Oop, not that one. Sorry, I just suddenly popped up other information from a previous who would win. Tosen Bankai. It is okay. Sushiki. That is it. Suzumushi Sushiki. Try that one more time. Suzumushi Sushiki Emakurogi. Creating a black dome around you and the opponent that you're locked in. It's pretty sizable too. Like it covered an entire like courtyard. And that's just that area effect that he created there. He might be able to make it larger. We don't know. But basically, going with the idea of sound, senses, and the fact that he's blind, it's basically it's a sphere of effect that completely destroys your senses. You can no longer see, you can no longer hear, you can no longer smell, you can no longer taste. I'm imagining, and you cannot sense spiritual pressure. The only thing you have is your sense of touch. Now that might come from the fact that Tosen is touching Suzumushi, and he needs to be able to touch it in order to be immune to the effect. That's why Kenpachi was able to beat. Well, Kenpachi also was able to beat him, just because Kenpachi was a better fighter and could counteract Suzumushi's effects over just through sheer tenacity. Which, by the way, yeah, he lost to Kenpachi in this fight. Shocker. Seeing as he actually lost to Kenpachi in the canon of the series, so makes sense. But yeah, which actually makes me wonder if he actually lost hold of Suzumushi, would he also be under the effects of his own Bankai then? That's never addressed, but he basically says the only one who can escape this hell, as he puts it, is the one wielding Suzumushi. So the question is, if he were to lose hold of Suzumushi, if Suzumushi were to leave his hand, would he be fully under the effects of his own Bankai? That's the question. But either way, it's still a pretty interesting Zanpakuto. And yeah, so how well did Tosen fare in my line? Well, obviously he ranks 15th strongest, which means he is the 6th weakest captain. So he's higher than 5 other people by a margin. Like he got more wins than the other ones did. He got a certain amount more wins than the other ones did. And as we get higher on the list, especially once we get to the top 10 spot and above spot, the amount of wins they got severely improves. But let's get down to this. So how does he fare against the two of the big hitters, Ichibei and Yamamoto? Well, against Yamamoto, he really doesn't have anything that can take on Yamamoto. If he tried Benehiko on Yamamoto, and taking Kido, the little bit of Kido we know he knows out of the equation. Because, honestly, and most of these guys who know Kido know it better than he does. In terms of pure power, Yamamoto just overwhelms Tosen. Benehiko might hurt Yamamoto to some degree, but Yamamoto is so skilled that he could easily either flash step away from it, block probably all the blades, or just Kido it out of the way. And if you go Bankai, I wouldn't even need to go Bankai for Yamamoto. Yamamoto just has to flood the entire dome with fire, and it's done. One sec. Out of there. Nice try, Pumpkins. I want more food. Like, no, you'll get chubby. You already got a pooch. Stop it. Sorry, the cat's trying to get into the food cabinet. Ooh, you good boy, though. I gave the pooch a scratch. Ooh, you good boy. So anyway, yeah, against Yamamoto, there's no way Tosen could beat Yamamoto. Not in a straight fair fight, and not on a neutral ground fight. Like with either of them not knowing each other's abilities. That's the thing. That's how I kind of treat these fights, as if the others don't necessarily know the other's abilities. Ichimonji and Ichibei, similar problem. Ichibei's got too much experience, too much skill, too many techniques under his belt to really be affected by Tosen's bond. And plus, he knows the names of every Zanpakuto. That's another problem. He would theoretically be able to look at your Zanpakuto, know the name of it, and know what it does. That's how messed up Ichibei really is. Now, that being said, does he have an effective counter for it? Sure. His Ichimonji, if he will get ink on the blade, he's going to take the blade's name away. Or if his sword actually strikes the blade, cuts the name in half, losing at least half its power. So, yeah, absolutely. He has methods around that, sure. But thing about Tosen is Tosen does attack from range. Ichimonji and Ichibei, not quite. Although Ichibei certainly has Kito that can attack from range, so take that for what it's worth, I guess. But no, Ichibei, if nothing else, from sheer experience and God knows spiritual power, because remember, the Zero Division, in theory, was said to be stronger than the complete 13 Court Guard squad put together. Now, that might have been an outdated concept because the ranks of the 13 Court Guard squad changed so often, quite frankly. But yeah, against Ichimonji and Ichibei, yeah, he'd lose. He'd pretty easily lose. Soifone is another one where I don't think he could beat Soifone in the fight. The reason for that comes similar to the reason that Kenpachi beat him. Soifone is, unlike Kenpachi, who prefers a blade and just hack and slash, Kenpachi does have innate, just battle instincts, things along those lines. And he can be quite dangerous in the hand-to-hand combat if he wants to be. He just prefers to fight with a sword. Soifone, on the other hand, is a trained fighter, pretty much almost from birth, I think. She's probably the most predominant hand-to-hand fighter in the 13 Court Guard squad. So it would make sense that in terms of battle instinct, she does have probably not quite the same raw capability that Kenpachi does, because she's trained more as an assassin and like a ninja pretty much, which is why she has hand-to-hand combat skills on the level that she does. And her division is primarily more like the Stealth Corps. She commands the Stealth Corps. So because of that, I do think she does win the majority of fights against Tosen as well. Again, pretty much take Suzumushi and Nishiki out of the equation, because most of these guys are probably going to be able to fight it off, if not be immune to it. So I don't think that technique really works well against anyone near his level, at least in terms of spiritual oppression Ryatsu. And the Benehiko, she can easily dodge that. Now, she's not a sword combatant. She's not that she's a bad swordsman or swordswoman in this case. It's that she's not very, what's the best way for me to put it? That's not her forte. That's not what she specializes in. She's good with her sword, but most of the time she goes immediately into her Shikai and then tries to get into close range. And luckily, she's also got the speed advantage over him, being one of the fastest members of the 13 Court Guard squad. Even if he were to go into Bankai, she could probably evade his Bankai and probably hit him enough times that she'd eventually get the two-step kill. Worst case scenario, if she feels she's in the corner, she can just blow the damn thing up with her Bankai and basically blow them both to hell. But technically, that's still a win on her part, so I'm giving her that. When it comes to both the Squad 3 captains, now this is interesting. Remember, I basically put these as fights where they're not really sure of the other's abilities. It's neutral ground, basically. And against both these guys, Gin and Rose, weirdly enough, even though Gin clearly places higher on the list, remember, I think he beats them both in a fight. In a fair fight where they don't know each other's abilities, I actually think he beats them both. Now remember, someone can rank much higher on the list than someone else, even if they lost that person later on. It's the accumulative win, not the okay, in this moment who wins. Just because someone could, perfect example. Just because Mayuri, I always go to these two examples. Just because Mayuri beat Pernida, and honestly he did that because of Nemo, doesn't make him stronger than Kenpachi. What was another one? There's always two perfect examples I use for this. And just because oh crap, what was the other example I always like to use? Just because Rukia beat Asnod does not mean she's stronger than Byakuya, even though Byakuya probably could have beaten him too at that point. There was another one I like to use as well that I can't remember right off the top of my head. But yeah, it's one of those things that just because someone loses to someone doesn't make them the actual overall weaker. And remember, we're using neutral ground here. But yeah, because in neutral ground, let's go over Rose first. Rose is also, his Kinshara is also a sound-based Zanpakuto. He seems to be dealing more with the concept of music, things along those lines. Now, actually, his Kinshara is probably not a bad weapon for blocking Benehiko. Although we don't know how much force that whip can really withstand. But he could probably, block it, do the whole whip effect, block it and throw it around. But ultimately, it would come down to Bankai to Bankai. And the problem here is that, yes, Kinshara Butodan affects sound, affects, you use music, affects your sense of sound, all that, our sense of hearing. The problem I see with it is that if he doesn't even know where the target is, he can't. I don't think he can direct the attack to him, attack towards Tozen. So if Tozen goes Bankai, then it's pretty much done. Plus, both these guys are kind of full of themselves. They have a tendency to monologue, talking about justice, or well, not justice per se, but Tozen talks about justice. I think, quite frankly, Rose was just an idiot. he was very vain, and very full of himself. But Tozen, the minute he sees that a Bankai is activated, probably wouldn't be as much talking much about justice as he was with Kenpachi. It was him trying to show Kenpachi that he was right and Kenpachi was wrong, and that didn't work out well for him. So yeah, I think Tozen would probably end Rose's life pretty quick. With Gin, you see, Gin's a tricky one. We know Gin does have knowledge in Keto. Don't know how high of knowledge, but we know he has it. We know he's pretty good at Flash Step. We know that Shinso, despite being a very simplistic Zanpakuto and Shikai, is still pretty dangerous. And we know that Kamishini no Yari is extremely dangerous. Like, again, it doesn't extend as far as he said, and it's not as fast as he said. Still, it's clearly pretty damn fast and pretty damn long. And then the poison effect of it is devastating. But the problem is, on neutral ground, like, Tozen would probably be able to, Shikai to Shikai, Gin would probably be able to, or Tozen would be able to pretty much handle Gin, I think, without too much difficulty. If Gin goes Bankai, then Tozen probably has the reflexes to block the strike, and noticing the effects of Kamishini no Yari going Bankai. The thing about it is, Gin has no knowledge of what the Bankai actually is in this version, so doesn't know that it's just a dome radius. If he just does a single swipe, then he's going to basically like cut Tozen in half. But he's unaware of this because this will be the first time he is seeing the effect of the Bankai. So, or not seeing, if you will. So, sorry, I had to just take care of something. I was with the computer. Luckily, without me being on camera, he didn't notice anything. So if you heard that sound, that was that hitting the table again. So yeah, because of that, I do think Tozen is able to take the win against Gin in a neutral fight. We're already at 17-minute mark. I want to kind of speed this up a little bit. So against the Squad 4 captain, Unohana, no, he completely loses. She's one of the oldest, most experienced captains. She's the first Kenpachi, so she's pretty much got the same type of battle sense that Kenpachi has. Her Zanpakuto, honestly, her Shikai alone would actually be pretty useful against Zemakurogi because it's a giant creature and a giant effect that Tozen probably isn't prepared for. And even if she doesn't decide to use Minazuki Shikai and decides to use it Bankai, again, we'll go more in depth into it when we get to her. Again, she's much higher on the list. But yeah, it's some sort of acid, which means if he gets too close to her, he's screwed. So ultimately, he lost to Unohana. He also loses out. He does win against Shinji, though. Against Shinji, he pulled out the win. Now, the reason for that is, obviously, now that we know what Shinji's Bankai actually is, we can't use his Bankai because we know it's useless in a one-on-one fight, which sucks for him, but, it is what it is. So it's a matter of Shikai. Is Shikai enough to beat Tozen? And unfortunately, in this case, I don't think it is. The reason for that is the Shikai inverts pretty much senses, direction, all that. Unfortunately, Tozen already doesn't have his sense of sight. So that is actually a big hindrance for Shinji on his part. So if again, going Bankai to Shikai in this case, Shinji gets caught in the Bankai, he's kind of screwed because he can't figure out what's going on. That would actually give Tozen enough time to figure out a way to compensate. So he eventually, I think, would take the win over Shinji. Same problem with a lot of them is with Renji. Renji is just a close range. I mean, his Zabimaru is a whip blade, but it's not. It wouldn't really be the best against Benihiko. I mean, they pretty much kind of be tied Shikai to Shikai, in terms of keeping the other at bay. But once you go Bankai to Bankai, it's pretty obvious Tozen's the one who has the edge because Renji still needs to get close. Renji still needs to be in close with his Bankai in order to do any sort of effect. And if he can't even find him, then he's screwed. I do not believe, even though he is definitely a warrior type Shinigami, he's not the same warrior type as, say, an Ikaku or a Kenpachi or a Unohana, who would just have that innate battle sense to counteract Tozen. So, ultimately, Renji, I don't think, wins. Now, someone who does ultimately win is, wrong one, but who is Byakuya. Byakuya, honestly, knowledge Aikido, he's one of the most well-rounded captains in the 13 Court Guard squad. I would say he probably doesn't have the same type of battle sense that Kenpachi does, but he has enough experience and is smart enough to honestly just use his Shikai as basically a shield. And then if he wants, flood the entire dome of Enma Kurogi with his Bankai and then basically just kill Tozen outright that way. There's probably numerous other ways Byakuya could easily get the advantage over Tozen. So I would definitely give the win there to Tozen. Now going to Sajin, like I said, Sajin, if you remember my Sajin video, Tozen was one of the few captains I actually think he would beat. Because unfortunately, Sajin just isn't that strong. I think he's number 19, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Sajin, God bless him. We like Sajin. He is a cool design character and all that, but man, he gets the short end of the stick when it comes to fights. He's beaten, I think, 2 individuals in his entire run as captain here. He beat Bambietta Mastermind, and he beat a Fraction Poe. Oh, God, man, poor Sajin. But luckily, I do think he actually beats Tozen here. Now, why do I think that? Because he beat him in the actual fight. Yeah, but that was when he was a visor and had a wrong card powers as well. When he had the resurrection, he was completely overpowered at that point. That Sajin was not able to take him on. Just neutral to neutral ground. Tenken basically creates giant appendages of the giant. So that's enough to block Benihiko. Suzumushi is clearly, as Shikai, not able to handle the raw power of Tenken. And then if you go Bankai to Bankai, well, you see just how big Kakujo Tenken Myo is. That thing would easily burst through the dome of Enma Kurogi. And he was even prepared to take on Tozen and deal with his Bankai as such when they originally fought in the fake Kurakura Town arc. So it's clear he was prepared to take him on. So again, neutral ground probably wouldn't be the best scenario for Sajin, but I do think Sajin actually could pull out a win there. Shunsui, I think it's pretty obvious he would beat Tozen. He's the reason he became the next head captain. He's one of the oldest captains. He's Zanpakuto, a Katen Kyotsu, making children gain reality. One of the most unique Zanpakuto in the entire series. One of my favorites, too. Like, you can actually pick up, buy replicas of Katen Kyotsu. I've been tempted to do that. That and Benihime. I do want a Shikai Benihime at some point. But anyway, so right off the bat, he's got enough battle experience and he's got enough technical techniques to be able to keep up with Tozen, even in Enma Kurogi, even without going Bankai. And if he goes Bankai in Enma Kurogi, Tozen's effed. Because the first Dawn inflicts all wounds that you have onto the opponent, which means Tozen immediately is just going to get cut and not realize what's going on. Then he's going to be inflicted with disease, which is going to cause bloody spots to show up all over his body. And seeing as he's not a being made of light, that's going to be a lot more of a hindrance to him. And then you go into the whole third Dawn, which creates the abyss, which you drown in until your spiritual pressure runs out, basically. And I don't know if he has to even go into the fourth Dawn, but if he does, then Tozen's screwed. And he's clearly got more spiritual pressure than Tozen does. So yeah, Shunsui clearly takes the cake when we're dealing with that. Dealing with Kensei. Kensei was the only other captain that he beat. Everyone else he loses to, and I'll explain why, in my opinion. But yeah, Kensei, we know he beats Kensei because he beat Kensei in the Turn Back the Pendulum storyline. He beat Kensei. So it was kind of a no-brainer that, yeah, he beat him. And he beats him pretty soundly, too, because unfortunately, against Tosen, Tachikaze's Shikai is far more useful because it at least has long-range capabilities. His Bankai is completely useless against Tosen, especially if Tosen goes into Bankai. So, yeah, unfortunately, yeah, he lost. So now that begs to some of the interesting questions. For instance, why does he lose to Shuhei? Well, Shuhei's actual ability bases on death and rebirth. Pumpkin smelling the inside of my shoe for some reason. It's like, I like the smell of your shoe. It's like, meow, I like this shoe. I will shit in this shoe. No, you won't. I digress. Shuei's actual ability, the actual Zanpakuto is the chain. Like that's the actual hilt of the or the handle of the Zanpakuto. Whereas, Kajishini's sickles are the blade. And his actual ability is, as long as you have the Ryatsu to heal yourself, is to repair you. It's to heal you from any. In the Turn Back the Pendulum, not Turn Back. Can't Fear Your Own World novel. I haven't gotten this far because it hasn't come out in English. I've heard of this part though. He actually gets bifurcated, if I'm not mistaken, by Hikone, the one of the villain antagonists in the storyline, and his Zanpakuto heals him. So nothing Tosen throws at him physically is going to really hurt him as long as he's got the spiritual pressure. Kazeshini is a very difficult Zanpakuto to handle and to fight against because it's so unpredictable. And Tosen's very skilled, but because his blindness does give him some level of hindrance. Now, granted, he was able to compensate for that, and he even Shuhei even said when he stabbed him and activated the Shikai in the fake Kokoro town, basically killing him, that if you didn't have your sight, you would have been more powerful. Because you were now at sight, you were so focused on this, you weren't paying attention to your surroundings. Whereas without his sight, it doesn't really matter. But the thing about it really is that Bankai to Bankai, Shuei's is actually a very good counter for Enma Kurogi because Shuei's Bankai, it's Fugo something. Again, when we get to Shuei, we'll talk more about it. He's coming up. I won't say which place, but he's coming up soon. Is that basically it basically connects them both. Combines their spiritual pressure, and all the damage is basically, all the damage you take is negated until your spiritual pressures run out. And that being said, you're still feeling the pain. The question is, who can take more pain? And I feel like it's Shuhei who actually would be able to take more pain. Because ultimately, when you think about Tosen's character, Tosen's kind of weak. Tosen was kind of a weak character. Something horrible happened to his friend. He swore revenge. But he ultimately was blinded by his own ambition and seduced by someone else. So Tosen is kind of a weak-minded individual in some ways. So I think Shuei ultimately would beat him in a fight. Toshiro, again, it's kind of the same issue we get with Yamamoto, is that he can just Byakuya, he can just flood the entire Enma Kurogi dome with elemental techniques and completely overwhelm him with ice. So ultimately, yeah, he's not really well matched up against. Sorry, I'm just getting some things up against Hitsugaya as well. So yeah, he loses that fight pretty thoroughly, in my opinion. Maybe not 100% of the time, but yeah, Toshiro, just clearly a better swordsman, has just far more techniques under his belt. And even if he got trapped in the dome, he'd just be able to use some ice techniques to overwhelm Tosen and continue on. Obviously, he lost to Kenpachi. I don't think there's much else we can say about that. He couldn't fare well against Kenpachi. Kenpachi's just was too skilled of a fighter for him. Ikaku, like I said, Tosen was the only captain or only opponent I put him up against who I actually think he could beat. And the reason for that is he's nowhere near as powerful as Kenpachi, mind you, but he's very much like Kenpachi in that he lives to fight, and therefore he also has that kind of innate battle sense. So I do think that even against Enma Kurogi, he would still be able to pull out a win. So against Ikaku, yeah, I mean, granted, Shikai to Shikai, obviously Tosen has the edge there, but I'm sure if Ikaku wanted to, he'd pull out Bankai, be able to quickly overwhelm Tosen. Tosen goes into Enma Kurogi, but Ikaku quickly is able to kind of adapt to it just like Kenpachi did. So I would give the win to Ikaku on that. Against Mayuri Kuretsuchi, I also give the win to Mayuri. Now, Mayuri is a little bit of a different, like, Mayuri's best feats come from planning, when he's prepared for an opponent. But at the same time, he still brings a lot to the table. He brings a lot of different physical enhancements that he has. His Zanpakuto, while basic, is unique, at least in design, if nothing else. And his Bankai is very useful just because of the sheer amount of poison and the size and the blades that it has. So, again, Shikai, yeah, Tosen might have a brief edge. Apparently, there is the technique Mayuri can do where he stabs the baby in the eye, it screams, and anyone who doesn't have Mayuri's blood is paralyzed, like, on a biological level. So that might, and because Tosen relies so much on sound, that actually would be probably a more effective technique against him. And even if he doesn't do that, Bankai to Bankai, Honjiki Agisogi Jizo is big enough to kind of overflow the dome and, secrete deadly poison. So it would be enough that Tosen would be, not crippled immediately, but hindered to the point where he'd not be able to fight anymore. And Mayuri's own regenerative capabilities are quite top-notch as well. If he needs to, he can regrow an arm. If he needs to, he can turn into goop. If he needs to, he can fire off that rocket arm. Throw a sickle chain from his ear. He's a very gross but unique individual. So yeah, against Mayuri, I don't think he could beat him. Against Urahara, I really doubt he could beat him. But Urahara is one of those guys who plans literally 1,000 steps ahead. His Benihime is testament that it's just the Zanpakuto that seems to adapt to whatever it needs to, whatever function it needs. It has God knows how many techniques, and that's just the techniques we saw from it. It probably has more techniques that Urahara never used. Then, of course, you also have to factor in that he's a Kido master, a hand-to-hand combat expert, a master swordsman, and again, a genius-level intellect. He could easily deduce how things are going down. Like, he could easily deduce how Emma Kurogi's working, and this maybe just create some Kido barriers and kind of just figure it out for a moment, and then basically use Juzumushi, basically the net, the exploding net. And, just blow up the dome if you really wanted to. Given the size of the explosion and what it's capable of, I'm sure he can do it. Plus, we know he can use level 99 Hado, the 99 War Dragon, so he could pretty much just destroy the dome if he really wanted to. So yeah, Urahara easily wins over Tosen in that fight. Last but not least, we got Rukia Kuchiki, and this is one of those other scenarios where, yeah, it's pretty clear Rukia beats Tosen in a fight. Her Zanpakuto's ability to reduce her body to absolute zero is not something Tosen wants to go up against. Even if he could get kill shots in her when he activating Bankai, because Benihiko's not going to work because she's just got techniques to counteract that, including, Sodenamai, Sunday Shirayuki, Sodenamai, Hakuduran. Basically, the one that basically does the giant blast of cold. She's got that one. And even then, Bankai to Bankai, her Bankai is an instant flash freeze effect. So she would easily just suddenly freeze him and the Bankai into oblivion. So, yeah, he loses straight out to Rukia. Ultimately, though, that's the video for Kaname Tosen, who I believe to be the 15th strongest captain in 13 core card squad. Join us next time when we talk about the 14th strongest captain. Not saying you'll find out when, obviously, because that's always listed in the video title. But until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Superior Magic, what if, anything to do with the channel. Put that in the comments below. Let me know. I'll get to that at some point. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I got a who would win do plus death battle prediction, but that's not till later. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.